Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us for these candidate interviews. It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
Why don't we start by letting you introduce yourself and your ward and a little bit about your background.
Sure, you bet. So Karen McNamara, moved here 16 years ago, and I'm a counselor of the Ward 4. Growing up, my parents instilled a lot of giving back, and that's part of who I am. And when this opportunity came up 2 years ago, I thought, you know what? I don't have a whole lot going on. This might be a great opportunity for me to learn about the city, give back, and be a voice for Ward 4. So I decided to jump in.
Very nice. Whereabouts in Ward 4 do you live?
I live on Prince Street.
Okay. And you said you've been there for 16 years or in Concord for 16 years?
16 years in Concord, yeah.
Okay. What got you interested in running for, well, you already answered that question.
Yeah.
You want to give back, so
Yeah.
terrific. So
Yes.
we'll jump right into our questions.
Okay, all right.
So we're going to start by talking about tax base. Pretty important issue for Concord, considering that we've got a lot of land that's tax exempt in Concord, so that burden gets shifted over to businesses and residents.
Yes.
So, at least in my opinion, tax base expansion is always a critical issue for Concord. And if you agree with that, what thoughts or ideas do you have in order to address those issues?
Sure. Yeah, growing our tax base is definitely a priority, Tim, and I've never had a constituent say to me, hey, you know, I would like to eliminate some of my services. It's always more. You know, they want more services, they want more recreation opportunities. And I think it's really important to remember that city's job is to provide a quality of life. And that quality of life are the basic infrastructures, water, sewer, roads. That has to be spot on. But we can't do it all by ourselves. So I think it's really important, the economic development, looking at the density of Concord. We can't just blow it up and build everywhere. We have to be thoughtful about building where it's not going to hinder the quality of life that people already have. Can the city do it by themselves? No. That's where the partnerships, private and public partnerships, come together to make many of our new businesses and businesses that aren't on the tax roll back onto the tax roll. If you think about the steady and thoughtful growth that started with Main Street project, and if you think about Exit 12, you know, that was kind of the beginning of this corridor. You've got True Blue Hotel, and you've got the new T-Bones. Exit 13, Terrell Park, is in the works, but that's going to be something that's going to add to the quality of life and bring people in to want to visit our businesses. If you keep moving, you have the South End project, the rail yards, which are now taking applications. You've got Manchester Street, a Graproni intersection. You move down into South Main Street, you now have Ledger Bank down there. And some of these businesses, they're in for their business, but they're doing so much to give back to the community. And that's that partnership that we need to keep tapping into. You keep moving down Main Street, and you've got Bank of New Hampshire Stage, Concord Hotel. You have the former New Hampshire Employment Securities Building that's going to be going back on the tax roll, and that's going to provide about 100 housing units and parking. And it also gives some lift to the city so we can have a better eye view and we can see it from other places like the highway. Other areas that we've looked at density to be careful not to squash certain things or quality of life is if you look at Fisherville Road, we have about 200 unit development out on Fisherville Road. And that was interesting because the design changed after hearing input from the residents. So hearing what people want to make their environments better. But I really want to talk about the mall for a second.
Sure. No, go ahead.
You know, the mall, about in 2008, the mall was worth about $85 million, right? And then over time, we just saw recently that it's now only worth $10 million. So with the new project that people saw on the monitor, we would be hopefully bringing in many retail businesses, possibly 625 units of housing in that area. And I think that it's really important that the city's role is to make sure we partner, have thoughtful decisions so that we can bring that in and bring that 10 million back up to 80 and maybe even more.
Yep, that's a kind of a long-term,
Yeah,
but
it is.
it's definitely a possibility. What do you see the city's role in economic development? Should we have an economic development director that's focused on this, or currently we've got some pretty talented staff that do economic development, but not necessarily in a traditional way.
Right.
Seeking out marketing to bring in more businesses, things of that nature. It seems like it's kind of reactive, but not in a unprofessional way.
Right.
Reactive in terms of we have folks with boots on the ground that understand the issues when opportunities present themselves. But are we being as aggressive in terms of trying to attract businesses as we might be?
I don't know, because I know we don't have high tech. We don't have some of the things that Manchester might have. But I think about that. I think it's the partnership that you build. I'm not sure we need a person to come in from the outside, because like you said, we have people right here with boots on the ground, with great mindsets, with great ideas. I'm not sure we need another person to hire separately for that. We had one. I think there were some successes, but you could probably tell me firsthand how successful you had compared to not.
Yeah.
So no, I'm not convinced that we need that person right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. I'm going to switch gears.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about the shortage of not just affordable housing, but housing
Right.
in Concord. I mean, this is nothing unique to Concord. It's throughout the state, but we are really feeling it. Employers can't find workers because they can't afford to find a place to live here. We've talked about greater densities to achieve economies of scale.
Right.
What types of thoughts do you have in terms of what we should be doing to increase the housing stock?
I think we have to be really careful about where we are using our densities. Because like I said, if you just put in too much housing all at once, you're going to upset that balance of quality of life, and people will feel it. So I really think that the city is doing a lot. Right now, we have about 600 units pending planning. 700 units have been approved, 400 under construction, and 1,200 are in the pre-planning stages. So about 3,000
Right.
units.
Yeah.
The city has looked at fee infrastructure, and they have made reductions that have reduced barriers with builders. We've looked at zoning and how it affects density. Building density for the whole city would be a really bad idea. That's why people say, well, how come it's not built yet? Because it takes thoughtful, slow decision making. You have to do it right.
Well, we have these. I forget how many you said, but more than 1,000 units
Yes.
that are somewhere on the books. But
Right.
getting those across the finish line is a multi-year event.
Yeah.
So we're not going to feel the benefits of that all at once.
No, and this isn't going to solve all of our problems either. I mean, a lot of the things are not in the city's control. If you think about skyrocketing interest rates right now, that's really pushing back on some of our builders. Wage increases, the out-of-control cost of materials, shortage of labor. But I do think that if we can attract and maybe have makeshift housing for people who are working here in the city just on projects, that might be a quick fix just to get more labor in.
I've heard employers talk about employer provided housing.
Yes.
Because that's how bad it is.
I know.
Well, we should switch gears, and I want to talk about a related issue relative to homelessness in Concord.
Yes.
Pretty significant issue, not just in Concord, but all over the state and elsewhere. But it's been a growing problem, and we've got some good organizations that have been working to address it, but so far not keeping up
Right.
close with the increase
Right.
in homelessness, which brings all kinds of pressures on public services,
Yes.
health and safety issues, impacts on property owners and
Yep.
business owners. What can we do differently, or what are we not doing to address this issue?
Yeah. I mean, like you said, housing first is a solution that makes progress, but it's extremely slow, and 3,000 units isn't going to solve the problem. It's a huge and multifaceted approach, but I think prevention is the #1 key to starting to not totally eliminate, but to bring our numbers down. that prevention is finding solutions that connect people with supports and services, because people who are struggling to pay their rent, struggling to buy groceries, struggling to pay for heat, if they don't have someone to reach out to support them or to get a service, before you know it, they are unhoused themselves. So I think continuing to drill down to the individual level in households, where we are seeing the county, state, CAP, the CCEH advocating, they're talking more and coordinating their efforts, where I think they weren't years ago.
I agree. I think that communication has improved over the past couple of years significantly.
But I think the biggest struggle right now, we all read it in the paper today, and the South Side is really feeling this, is that we have a group of chronic homeless who don't want support. We can't force someone into housing. We can't force someone into rehabilitation. This is a choice that each individual has, but I know that the Coalition to End Homeless is working with a database so that every service can have access to Karen McNamara. Maybe if someone's touched my life, someone else say, well, we work with them over here and we can combine services. I think that's key. It's not going to be the total answer, but it's getting better between the services sharing that support.
Tough issue to deal with.
It is. It really is.
So moving along, I want to talk a little bit about tourism.
Yeah.
You know, very important industry in New Hampshire, second largest industry. There are those among us, including myself, that think Concord in our region does not get its fair share of that economic benefit.
Yeah.
If you agree with that, and do you agree with that? And if so, what do you think the city can do to help advance tourism in this region?
Well, I don't agree that I'll just start. I'm not sure that I don't agree we don't get enough benefit, but are we tapping in to get a benefit from it? I don't mean to point at you, Tim, but that's just...
That's okay.
You know, I think the city does a great job providing a welcoming, safe, clean, walkable environment, but I think transportation is huge. You know, signage. When you're driving into the city, do the signs lead you to where you want to go? Does it show you where the city parking garages are? When I go to a city to visit, that's the first thing I look for, is where's the parking garage? Because I want to get in and get out of my feet on the sidewalk. I know that last year the city provided $150,000 for events to provide financial incentives, and I believe the hotels and restaurants were full during Black Ice, Market Days, and the Sunflower Festival. Those kind of things, promoting those things is what really brings in people. One thing that I think that I'd like to see us change is the State House. If I'm a tourist and I come into Concord because I want to see the State House, and I get here and the State House is closed, I'm not going to be a happy tourist.
Yeah. And they're closed on weekends.
Exactly.
When the tourists show up.
Exactly. So I'd like to see the State House open on the weekends. You know, along with continued outdoor dining, I'd like to have a food truck rally. I'd like to have a place, platforms where food trucks can park and everyone knows that's the space where we go. You know, we have the Capitol concerts outdoors in the park. We have the Red River Summer Movie Nights, a memorial. Events drive people to eat. They drive them to explore, stay, repeat. But it's not just the tourists. Those of us who live here, we benefit just as much, even if not more, from everything that we do to attract tourism and what we do for the city. But I do have a question that I've been thinking about, and I want to challenge you, the Chamber.
Sure.
I really would like the Chamber to survey Concord to show the return on investment in tourism and how taxpayers and businesses will benefit.
Yeah, it is measurable.
Yeah.
So that could be done.
I mean, that would help city councilors.
Yeah.
This study would help city council pursue additional investments, I think.
Right. Nope, that's a very good point, Karen. I'll put that on the back burner and continue with the questions.
I'm sure it's already there.
Talk about that. So we're running out of time. I've got one last
All right.
question. Lots of cars going up 93, passing right by Concord.
Yeah.
Some would say, myself included, that we do not present ourselves very attractively to those cars going by. But what could we be doing differently to get people off that highway and into Concord.
Yeah. Well, I think we're already starting. If you don't mind, the first time I traveled the I-93 corridor was back in the early 80s when I was on a family vacation. And I did stop at the Highway Hotel on the Fort Eddy, and it wasn't a pretty sight. Traveling back through here 16 years ago, it's gotten a little better.
Yep.
But I think in the last 10 years, with putting up taller buildings, cleaning along the river, all the brush and debris has been removed. You can see the river from the highway. You can see rowers on the highway. When we start to do the I-93 extension, that's going to open things up. It's going to beautify and add aesthetics coming off the highways. And then if you think about that leading into Kiwanis Park, we want to do a lot to make that inviting. Also, when they take down...
the parking garage?
Thank you. The parking garage, that'll be a huge impact for Ward 4, the parking garage and the Department of Justice.
Sure.
I think it will open up and remove something that's not visually pleasing. And I know that we could do something along the lines of a winter farmer's market or a greenhouse along with a food truck alley. I think that we can open that up more so.
That's coming.
I
That's
know.
coming.
And the murals.
Yep.
And how about a perennial field? I've traveled where I'm along the highway and they do
Sure.
a swath of poppies.
I've seen those.
I know.
We're out of time, but thank you so much for doing this,
Tim.
Karen. It was a pleasure.
I appreciate it. Thanks.